The Little Mermaid. I'll tell you, a lot of people called it that it was not gonna be the live action remake that Disney thought it was gonna be. It's not gonna do the numbers that Disney was hoping it was gonna do. So this is from over at Bounding into Comics. The Little Mermaid declared a massive flop for Disney by box office analyst. Gotta give credit to Odin over at OMB Reviews. YouTuber and box office analyst OMB Reviews declared the Walt Disney Company's The Little Mermaid is a massive flop for Disney following the film's second weekend at the box office. In a video looking at the past weekend's box office numbers, OMB Reviews opened. The Little Mermaid dropped 58% domestically and is still making next to nothing internationally. And let's just say the film is essentially guaranteed not only to flop, but also to be a massive flop for Disney and could ultimately be one of the worst performing movies in their entire history. Think about that. Let that sink in for a second. The Little Mermaid could be the biggest flop in Disney's entire history. He argues now, of course, this is all in the fact that many people, when looking at the box office, are failing in the comparisons, especially to Aladdin, to remind themselves that the ticket prices back in 2019 were very different than what they are today. In fact, ticket prices are about double. And also, of course, as everyone loves to always hear, and as everyone always wants to get triggered by, the rate of inflation has changed as well. Yeah, that's more than obvious. According to the numbers, The Little Mermaid's box office gross fell 58% in its second weekend at domestic theaters to just $40.6 million. It grossed $95.5 million in its 3-day opening weekend during Memorial Day weekend. The total domestic box office now sits at $186.2 million. The Little Mermaid did add to its international total, with Deadline reporting it brought in $42.3 million in its second weekend. The film only brought in $68.3 million in its opening weekend internationally. The total box office sits at $140.5 million. The film's global gross sits at $326.7 million. It reportedly had a production budget of $250 million, meaning that the film is still in the red. And as OMB Reviews notes, it does not look like it will be turning black anytime soon. Now, that $250 million, by the way, is not including marketing and advertising. While comparing the film to Aladdin, which released on Memorial Day weekend back in 2019, OMB Review says, I would suspect, based on the tracking and based off the percentage, we're looking at this movie maybe able getting to get to 300 million domestically, maybe. We still have to wait and see if it's even going to happen yet. But ultimately, 300 million domestically might sound decent on paper, especially when you compare it to a film like Fast X or Fast 10. We'll look at the international number. The Aladdin movie back in 2019 made $788 million internationally, he continued. So far, The Little Mermaid has only made $140 million. And that means that you're looking at best case scenario for domestic, maybe 300, 350. Best scenario, OMB Reviews analyzed, you're looking at international best case scenario, 250 million. Is that being generous? I think. You add those numbers up, that doesn't get you to 625 million, which is its break-even point. So yeah, not looking good overall for Little Mermaid going forward, especially when you have releases. You got the Transformers movie coming out. I don't think Oppenheimer's till July. I think Oppenheimer's after Mission Impossible, which is in July. So yeah, it's not looking good for Little Mermaid. Later in the video, OMB Review shared his breakdown of the film and its box office hauls. First, he explained his process. If you ever followed my chart before, I was able to break this down years ago that most movies will make either 70% of their entire box office within the first 2 weeks, or if they have really strong legs, if they have a really strong performing box office, they'll make half of their entire box office in the first 2 weeks. There are obviously exceptions to this, but on average, the vast majority of films fall somewhere between 70 and 50% number. Let's assume that 326 is the 70% of the entire box office for Little Mermaid. That means the end result, so this is a very likely scenario for this movie, would be 466 million worldwide, he explains. Best scenario, let's say it doubles its money. Best case scenario would be 650 million, he continued. That is the best case scenario. We are already seeing in the legs for this movie, it is not holding to that extent. It is not doubling and is not going to double what it has made so far. But even if it did 650 million, would be a minimal profit, and according to some metrics, be a financial loss. It really depends on whether your break even is 2.5 or 3 times the budget. So even if it did make money, quote unquote, it would still not be nearly enough to make up for any discrepancies in either direction, because it'd be such a minimal profit that it really doesn't mean all that much in the first place, or it would still be a financial loss. He then shared his prediction for how much the film will make globally. What is more likely to happen, somewhere I would say around 500 million, is probably what this film could expect to have, especially based on the drops that we're seeing, with, I think, the best case scenario for it actually being the average around 550 to 560 million. So what does that mean? Because of its massive $250 million budget, that means right now I'm projecting the film to lose around $100 million. It could make as much as 17 million. Again, using the 2.5 multiplier. You could obviously see this film still lose money if it was a 3 times multiplier. On average, I expect the film to lose somewhere between 50 to 100 million, and that is a minimum. Now, again, I'm going to say the movie's budget was 250 million, but you also have to factor in the marketing and advertising, which I think I read somewhere. I'd have to dig and find it, but the marketing and advertising budget was somewhere between 80 to 100 million. So now you're saying, instead of 250, 330 to 350 million. So yeah, it's not looking good for Disney with the Little Mermaid. So comment down below, share your opinion. What do you think? You think Odin is spot on in his analysis? Do you think he might be a little bit off? Comment down below. If you would, please take the time to like the video, smash that like button, subscribe, share. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the notification bell to get notified when my content goes live here on YouTube, as well as over on Rumble and Odyssey. And yeah, that's all I have for right now. So I thank you for watching. I thank you for tuning in, and I will see you later.